Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today's a solo episode, and I have a topic I want to dive into, and that's 5 benefits of taking time away from fat loss dieting in a body recomp. And at the end, I'm also going to go over some signs that you are at that point where you do need to take a break from fat loss. But first, before I go into that, I just want to go over a few ways you can help support the podcast. First, if you found this podcast to be helpful in any way, if you could leave a rating and review, and that will help more people find this podcast. Again, I'm trying to grow it. I want to get this information out to more people, and the best way to do that is through ratings and reviews. More people will be able to find that. So if this information's been helpful or you think somebody would benefit from it, please leave a rating and review, and that will help there with that. So again, appreciate everybody who listens. Next, if you are interested in learning more about a body recomp, what it is, how to do it, how I would set it up, how you go about training, then my free masterclass on body recomp is for you. The link to that is in the show notes. I also have my free masterclass on nutrition periodization. I go over each nutrition phase. I go over common mistakes. I go over how to set it up, adjustments, all those things. I dive into each and everything that you could think about in each nutrition phase. And again, this may be a good episode. This episode today may lend itself very well to downloading either one of those, especially the nutrition periodization, because again, and I'll hit on this later on in this episode, but again, if you find that you need to take a break from fat loss dieting, what do you do? And those are things that you can figure out there with that. Next, if you haven't yet, give me a follow on Instagram, Jeff. That's where I'm most active on social media. You can ask me any questions. If there's anything that didn't make sense on here or you need further clarification on, you can just shoot me a message and I will get back to you on that. So with that out of the way, let's dive into today's topic. So 5 benefits of taking time away from fat loss dieting during a body recomp. So like I talked about before, 2 types of body recomp. We have long-term, short-term, that simultaneous fat loss, muscle gain. And then we have long-term where you have periods of time where you do one or the other. You have to focus on one a little bit more. So again, this probably would fall into more of a long-term body recomp, but again, you could take it from a short-term body recomp, especially if you are in a deficit, which if your weight's going down, you are in an energy deficit there with that. So again, most people would benefit from losing body fat. However, the only problem is when that's the only thing you ever focus on. This is a big thing that I see. Fat loss, it's great. Like a lot of people would really benefit from fat loss, but it just becomes an issue when you do it for extended periods of time. That's where we really start to see some downsides. Sometimes you need to take a planned break from fat loss. I think most people don't understand that. They get that wrong, right? They just think that it's just something you always do. But what do you do after that? So again, sometimes we need to take a planned break from fat loss, as this will help us out. Otherwise, what I see happen is many people take an unplanned break from it. And then this is accompanied by excess fat gain and potentially other issues, right? And just maybe a poor relationship with food and just maybe a sense of, oh, hey, dieting doesn't work. Every time I diet, I gain a bunch of weight back. But again, is it because you're going too long? You're ignoring some of these signs. And so again, today I want to dive into the benefits of it. But again, just to restate, in order to lose body fat, you need to be in an energy deficit. You expend more calories than you take in over time. Okay, so that is fundamental. That has to happen. People will try to work around this and say, oh, I track calories and I didn't lose weight. I did keto and I lost weight. Yeah, because when you did keto, you made adjustments to where you got into a calorie deficit, right? You probably took out a bunch of foods that were just getting you to eat way more calories than you thought. So again, no matter what, we need to be in an energy deficit. In pretty much every case, this is going to require fewer calories being consumed for a period of time, which may come with some potential downsides. Okay. And doing that for too long can hurt your body composition, right? So again, our goal with fat loss is typically to improve how we look, probably how we feel as well too. But again, if we continue to do fat loss for extended periods of time, this could lead to worse outcomes from a body composition standpoint, which sucks because it's being in a calorie deficit sucks because you obviously don't get to eat as much food. You're a little bit hungrier, et cetera. And so you might as well get the most out of it if you're doing that. So to combat this with clients, I work in phases of, we work in phases of fat loss, right? So fewer calories. And then we have phases where we eat a bit more calories. So we have building phases, maintenance phases. Again, we throw recomp phases in there, short-term body recomp phases. Again, if you're interested in hearing more about these and what these phases entail, my free masterclass on nutrition periodization is for you. But again, we make sure with clients that we work in multiple phases there. And so I want to dive into the benefits of taking time away from fat loss dieting when it comes to a body recomp. So first, we have better muscle retention and muscle gain in this process. So we know a big part of a body recomp is maintaining and building muscle, right? There's 2 sides of the equation. We have the fat loss side, we have the building muscle side of things. People generally just focus on the fat loss side of things and they forget about, hey, the building muscle, maintaining your muscle, like that's a big part of this process. And so by taking time away from fat loss dieting, again, we're getting out of an energy deficit for a period of time, which even if you're somebody who has more weight to lose, this can be beneficial for you. Being in an energy deficit for too long can hurt this process. It can hurt the process of maintaining and building muscle. Getting to your maintenance energy balance or small surplus is going to be superior for the maintenance and building of muscles. It's not that a calorie deficit is automatically going to lead to muscle loss. It's just when we do it for extended periods of time and we really just keep trying to restrict our food, that's where we start to run into some issues here. If we can take time away from being out of a energy deficit, we can really reap the benefits here of better muscle retention, muscle gain, and then over time, this is going to lead to better body composition. Again, muscles super important for insulin sensitivity, super important for your look, and if we're not focused on that, we are hurting ourselves. I've just found people that have more muscle. Any client that has more muscle, like they just tend to drop body fat much easier, and they maintain their weight much easier as well too. And then on top of it, they obviously like their body, or they like the way they like their look at higher body weights than they did in the past, or than what they thought. I can't tell you how many times somebody came in thinking like, hey, I want to be 130, but we get there at 140 and you're like, wow, I look way better at 140 than I did at 130. And it's, yeah, hey, it's because you're really focused on the muscle building side of the equation. Again, we don't need to just focus on that muscle building side of the equation, but most people are on the spectrum of way too focused on the fat loss side of things, weight loss side of things, and they need to shift over closer to the middle there with that. So again, better muscle retention, better muscle gain by taking some time away from fat loss dieting from periods of time. Training will be way better. So many people enjoy being able to progress their training to keep them motivated, right? It's motivating. Your training, you want to see progress. If you're always in an energy deficit, your training will likely suffer over time, not right away and not for short periods of time, but over extended periods of time, you will start to see it suffer. And everything just feels tougher the more weight you lose and the leaner you get, and the more we just try to restrict our calories more, right? So somebody that, just is trying to be like, oh, hey, I just want to lose 5 more pounds. Hey, I just want to lose 5 more pounds. I just want to lose 5 more pounds. I'm going to stop when I lose 5 more pounds. Eventually, that's going to lead to that. Again, those first 5 to 10 pounds you lose, you're probably not going to feel it. The first 10 to 20, probably not, but you just keep going and going. That's where you start to see this add up. So again, by taking a break from fat loss dieting, you'll have more calories to help with energy during training to progress and crush your workouts, which in turn is going to help with building and maintaining muscle as well too. I think that's where people probably long-term really get themselves in trouble is they're not eating enough. They're not really fueling their training ever because they're just trying to continue to lose more body fat. And then you're not as motivated to train. You just really can't push yourself as much. And it's harder to maintain and build muscle in that state. Number 3, another benefit of taking time away from fat loss dieting is biofeedback improves. So things like your energy levels are going to improve, your hunger is going to improve, your cognition, general, just how you feel from day to day. All this is going to improve, right? When you fat loss diet, drop weight and get leaner, things like energy levels go down, hunger and cravings increase, cognition can decrease, libido decreases. So all these things start to go downhill as, fat loss diet for longer periods of time. And this is why, again, I talked about the unplanned side of things. This is where people just, if they don't ever have an end date and it's just this kind of vague, just, hey, I just want to get leaner, I just want to lose weight. They keep pushing, they keep trying to do this, and then eventually they get to the point to where these things are creeping up. They lose that 5 to 10 pounds, they lose that 10 to 20 pounds. These things start to creep up. They don't really realize what's going on. They keep trying to push through, and then that's where they just get to that. I just gave up. I'll reach out to people and be like, what are you doing now? Hey, I'm here. I was in a fat loss phase. I just stopped tracking. Hey, I just stopped. That's typically what I see happen when people don't have any guidance, is they just stop doing it, right? For some people, they stop doing it. And again, they do a good job of, staying active and whatnot, and they don't see their weight come up a lot. Some people, they stop doing it and they just completely stop doing everything. And then they see these big rebounds, right? But either way, because your biofeedback decreases during fat loss, this is what makes it more challenging to stick over time. Because again, it's just, you don't feel good, you're super hungry, your libido's low, you're just not thinking clearly before. It's, of course, you're going to end up just being like, this freaking sucks, I'm going to stop doing it. So again, if we know ahead of time that this is going to happen, we can have that end date in mind, and we know we're going to have a planned break, which can offset some of these things. So you're more likely to in the time you're not maximizing fat loss in a short period of time, but over extended periods of time, you're going to be maximizing it because you're going to avoid those times where you're just, oh, I'm just not doing anything, or you just gain everything back, right? So by taking time away from fat loss dieting from time to time, you can get these back to normal levels and feel much better overall. Number 4, taking a break from fat loss dieting can speed up your metabolism. So getting out of an energy deficit can increase your metabolism through increased movement from more calories and more energy overall. So I can't tell you how many times I've seen this happen with clients where they, as you fat loss diet, things like non-exercise activity thermogenesis, so like just subconscious movement, day-to-day movement, will start to trend down. Your body does a really good job at lowering this subconscious kind of movement that you don't really think about, blinking, fidgeting, fidgeting, just you getting up and moving around a little bit more. Your body will really start to decrease those things. And again, you don't even really notice it. And for some people, this is very pronounced. For some people, it's not as bad. But this happens. And then so when you get back to, say, your maintenance calories, you'll see all that kind of spike up. And now your body is more, instead of being more thrifty with the energy, it's more just wasteful with it, right? And again, just how on the way down, some people's metabolism is a little bit more thrifty. On the way up, it's the same thing. Some people's metabolism is a little bit more wasteful than others. So you just need to see, but there is a good chance that your body's going to be a little bit more wasteful with energy, which is good. It's going to burn more calories by bringing in more calories. People will ask me, hey, if I increase my calories, am I going to see my weight come up? When they say increase it from deficit to, say, maintenance, am I going to see my weight come up? Am I going to see it stay the same? Is it going to go down? And I say it really just depends, right? Especially if I haven't worked with this person in the past at this point, it really just depends, right? So again, we can get an increased movement from more calories and more energy overall. Next, we have more food being eaten. So you expend more energy absorbing and digesting food. Again, another component of your total daily energy expenditure is thermic effect of food. And if we're in an energy deficit, we're not eating as much, we're obviously not going to expend as much energy through that. So by eating more calories, you're going to expend more energy there. Now, again, I always want to preface this by saying this isn't going to be like, oh, hey, this is a whole meal's worth of food now at this point that you can add into your diet. We're probably talking anywhere from 50 to 100 calories per day, maybe even less, maybe a little bit more, just depending on the person. But at the end of the day, it is going to have a small component to it, or a small energy increase or difference, whatever you want to say there. But this starts to add up with increased movement, increased thermic effect of food. And then 3, obviously eating more calories and getting, say, from a deficit to your maintenance, it can help add more muscle, and more muscle is going to equal potentially higher energy expenditure, right? Muscle is very costly to maintain and build. And so this is going to add energy expenditure throughout the day. Not to mention, again, like I talked about, muscle is basically a sink for glucose, meaning people that have issues with, say, insulin sensitivity or glucose issues. By building muscle, it really gives your body a place for it to go to. And so where I'm looking for here, it's just very more useful. Your body's more useful with the food you give it. And so again, this is where muscle can help. So all these things start to add up, right? It's not just, hey, the increase of movement is going to be this massive thing. It's not just more food being eaten. It's all these things combined that really start to add up and can add up over time with that. And again, with your metabolism, you're not going to be able to just down 5 pizzas a day at any point and be good to go. We're obviously still going to have to there's a cap to how much this can go up. But to me, why would we not be doing things to push us in that direction and to try to stack the cards in our favor, right? I think this is where a lot of people get caught up, and this doesn't really do much, or this only adds 50 calories, or how much am I expecting here? And that's asking the wrong question. It's just, hey, why would you not try to stack the deck in your favor, right? That's really what we're trying to do here. There's never going to be any guarantee, but we want to work towards trying to put everything in our favor. Too many people just overly focus on like the specifics, and then they don't stack the decks. Is it stack the decks, stack the card? I don't know. Same thing, right? In their favor. But again, that's what we're trying to do. That's what I try to do with clients. We're just trying to get as much in our favor as possible. Number 5, you obviously get more flexibility with food choices. When you're fat loss dieting, you simply just have less flexibility with food choices because you are eating fewer calories than normal, right? If you're really trying to stick to that calorie deficit, you don't have to just eat chicken, broccoli, and rice. We have flexibility here, but again, you have less flexibility than you would, say, when you're at maintenance, right? We would have more calories to work with during that time. So because we have less flexibility, or because we have less calories to work with, we have less flexibility, which in the short term, probably not that big of a deal for most people, but in the long term, that can start to add up. By taking a break from fat loss dieting, you'll be able to have more flexibility with food. This will help with long-term adherence and sustainability, but also your future fat loss phases, right? And what I mean by that is, obviously, it's going to help long-term adherence because you don't always feel like you have to be super restrictive, which is, you're just going to feel better about that. But this can also be helpful in your future fat loss phases because you're going to come at it with a new kind of fresh kind of mindset with it, and that, okay, cool, I've been able to take a little bit of time to have more flexibility. Now I feel good. Whereas if you just keep trying to be restrictive, eventually that's going to catch up and you're going to be like, this freaking sucks. I don't get to enjoy life at all. For what, right? And then on top of it, you're also potentially losing some muscle. So you're not happy with your look. So again, we need to make sure we take some time here to really focus on taking time away from fat loss dieting. So again, there's a time and place for an energy deficit for fat loss. However, it becomes an issue when you do it for too long and too often. Again, I know some people may take this as, okay, so you're saying we should never try to drop body fat? No, we need to, again, if you want to improve your body composition, part of that is going to be dropping some body fat in pretty much most cases, right? I do work with some clients where for them, they're very lean and dropping more body fat isn't going to be beneficial from a body comp standpoint. But most people I work with, they do have some body fat that they need to drop. Again, 9.5 times out of 10, that's going to be the case. But again, so we do want to drop body fat, but we just don't want to do it for extended periods of time. And we don't always want that to be our goal. So with clients, I aim to spend no more than 1/3 of a year in an energy deficit. Again, unless they have a significant amount of weight to lose. Okay. If somebody is 50, 60, 70, 80 pounds or more overweight, initially we probably will spend a little bit more time out of the year dropping some body fat, right? So for them, maybe it's 2/3 out of the year versus 1/3, right? But somebody that's at maybe slightly overweight, moderate weight, they just need to drop some body fat. We're looking at spending no more than 1/3 of the year fat loss dieting. So we're talking about 4 months, right? So that's 12, 16, 20 weeks there that we're going to be doing this. Because people will ask, how long should I be fat loss dieting? And really how I approach this is, we give it a time frame, see what the client has coming up, et cetera. And usually it's, hey, we're going to start at 8 to 12 weeks. Let's see what happens. And during those 8 to 12 weeks, what we're going to do is we're going to reevaluate, see how you feel, see how much leaner you want to get, see how your progress is, and then we'll go from there, right? Because really there's no perfect time in terms of how long to fat loss diet. And what you really need to look at is how lean are you and what's your biofeedback and what's your rate of loss been, right? Someone that's been losing, say, 0.2 pounds a week, they can really increase how long they're in a fat loss phase, right? However, the issue with that kind of goes against my 1/3 rule I talked about. The issue with that is that may be less motivating for people. And again, for a little bit of time, that may be solid from a body comp standpoint, because depending on where you're at, you may be building muscle in that process. But the longer you do that, it's like you're just dipping your toes in fat loss, but you're not really maximizing it. But you could also be doing better from a muscle building standpoint. Again, if it's that slow, there, again, for some people, that is the right direction to go. But for a lot of people, they want to see things be a little bit more optimal. But again, there is nothing wrong with that. So again, the slower you go, the more body fat you have, the longer really the way to think about this is the slower you go from a fat loss perspective, weight loss perspective, week over week, and the more body fat you have, the longer you can be in an energy deficit. Again, that's also dependent on the person and how they are mentally. So again, we have to take that into consideration. So really my point there is that there is no perfect time frame of fat loss dieting. What I will say is, again, anywhere from 8 to 20 weeks is usually where people, they're most motivated, they're ready to go. And then once they fall outside of that, it's just like motivation goes down, then adherence is an issue. And then, all right, could we potentially be spending our time better here? And again, that's the case there with that, but it is very individual with that. That's the reasons why we would want to do that. Now, I just want to go over what are some signs that you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. Okay. So signs you need to take a break from fat loss dieting. Some of these things are going to be some caveats here with them. The first one's going to be extreme hunger levels. Hunger is going to be a part of the process, right? This is where sometimes people get confused with this. Like when you say, oh, hunger's high. In order to drop body fat, you do need to have some hunger. If you don't have any hunger, you're probably not dropping body fat. But that's tricky because at the same time, too much hunger can be an issue, right? Because now it's, all right, that's your body telling you, hey, either you're going way too quick, this is just not sustainable, or it's, hey, we need to get out of a fat loss diet for a period of time. So again, we need to look at that. But at the same time, also from a hunger standpoint, can you improve your meal timing? Can you improve your eating habits? Can you improve your food choice, your food quality? Can you improve your sleep? There's a lot of things that we want to look into here before just being like, oh, hunger, I have some hunger, I need to take a break from a fat loss phase. Again, that's an okay strategy, but the downside with that would be is you're probably really going to struggle to lose as much body fat as you want, or it's just going to take really long periods of time for that to happen. So hunger's a tricky one there. And again, this is where having a coach can be super helpful to see if it's actually hunger from from fat loss dieting, or is it from just, this is part of the process, right? And you need to improve some things. So again, you want to walk that fine line there with that. Fixation on food. If all you can think about is tasty foods and you want to eat, it's probably not time to diet for fat loss for a bit. So again, if we have this fixation on food where it's just like, man, you're just overly focused on, man, I want that. Holy crap, I want that. You're finding yourself scrolling Instagram, looking for food. You're watching Food Network. You're just doing all these things okay, something's got to happen here. We got to change something up. And you trying to continue to restrict your food is probably not the best for you right now. Again, this is very individual and some people just like to see those things. So again, if you just enjoy that, okay, there's nothing wrong with that, right? So this is where it does need to be individual, but If a client's telling me that they're just overly fixated on food and they're like dreaming about food and they're on Instagram, they're like somehow just looking at food, it's just, okay, we got to look into this, right? Another one would be low energy levels. If you're feeling like you don't want to do anything and just feel lethargic all the time, then you may need to take a break from fat loss dieting, right? However, this is one that I wanted to bring up because I had a client recently where she's been in a deficit for about 5 to 6 weeks. It hasn't been like the super quick weight loss. It's been pretty moderate, and she got some poor sleep, right? And I don't know if it's from I had some low energy levels, but I had a couple nights where I had poor sleep. She had this like big work thing going on that was taking up a lot of her time and energy. And she was like, hey, is it because I didn't know if it was because of the deficit or whatnot? And I'm like, look, it's probably sleep and just the work, right? People underestimate the impact of how sleep really makes them feel. And even just like work stress like that, right? That takes a toll mentally and on your energy levels, right? Even though it's maybe not necessarily the most physical thing. So what I'm trying to get at here is, again, we need to discern the difference between, okay, is it because maybe you got poor sleep and you just have a lot going on, or is it actually because of diet fatigue? And if you haven't really lost very much weight and you're not super, super lean, it's probably not the diet, the fat loss diet. It's things that you're doing, right? Again, it's the sleep that's more of an issue there with that. So again, I just want to bring this up because somebody may be like, I have a little bit of hunger and my energy levels just aren't great. Oh my God, I need to stop being in a fat loss phase. Like, that's not necessarily the case, right? There's probably some things that you can work on before we do that. Poor training performance. If your training feels awful more times than not, and you feel weak, maybe time to take a break from dieting. Again, this is where we don't want to just take this at face value. We want to look into it. Could you improve your meal timing around your workouts? Could you improve your sleep? Could you improve your hydration, right? These are all things that we would want to look at before just being like, oh, that's the reason. Low sex drive. If your sex life is tanked, it's probably time to take a break from dieting. This is one that I think you could take a little bit more at face value, right? Because it would be something that as you get lean, you've been dieting for a while, it's pretty self-explanatory there with that. It's not like you could it's not like you could alter your meal timing or anything there to improve your sex drive, right? Or food. Theoretically, as I'm saying this, you could again look at sleep, look at your food choices as well too, and make sure you're recovering, because high stress can decrease your sex drive. However, a calorie deficit is a stressor on the body. Again, we would just need to look into your lifestyle and see if there's anything going on there with that potentially, right? Menstrual irregularities, right? If this is happening, you probably should take a break from dieting for fat loss. If your cycle is X amount of days, say it's 28 days, now all of a sudden it's starting to get pushed back by weeks, you're skipping them, you're not getting them regularly. And again, you've been dropping some body fat or dropping some weight, you've dropped 10 to 20%, you can 10 to 20 pounds, whatever, 5 to 10% of your body weight, and these things keeps happening, then you may want to look at taking a break from fat loss dieting. Again, this is going to have a huge stress and sleep component to it, so you would want to look at those. Sleep disturbances. Poor sleep is going to make adherence very challenging. So again, if you're waking up in the night just like super hungry, again, it could be a meal timing thing. It could be maybe you're in too large of a deficit, right? What's your sleep hygiene look like? We would want to look into those things. But again, if these are happening, you would definitely want to potentially look at taking a break. I guess one last thing I want to say on this before we wrap up, especially with these signs, if you're somebody who has not really lost weight and these things are happening, to me, it has more to do with your methods and what's going on. Whereas if you've lost, say, 5 to 10% or more of your body weight and these things are happening, it's most likely that you do need to take a break. So again, we need to look at the difference here, because I know people will be like, somebody, again, they're not losing weight like they want, but they're super hungry. They have this fixation on food. They have low energy levels. They have all these things, but they haven't lost any weight. Again, it's a lifestyle, training, nutrition, like not from you need to restrict more, but like we need to get more quality foods in, we need to work on the lifestyle thing. Like that would be our focus for this person. And then again, if you've lost 5 to 10% or more of your body weight and these things are happening, that's where I'm more likely to be like, hey, let's take some time away from fat loss dieting, which if that's the case, then this is where, again, I would push you, like say you're somebody who you're currently fat loss dieting, or in the past, you've lost 5 to 10% or more of your body weight, and you are running into these issues. I would look at, and you don't really know where to go. This is where I would look at my nutrition periodization masterclass. I would look at a maintenance phase. I would look at a building phase. And I would also look at the fat loss phase 1, because I talk about how to reverse out of a fat loss diet. So I'd look at that. If you're somebody who has not lost 5 to 10% or more of your body weight and you're running into these issues, I'll look at my body recomp phase or health maintenance phase. And those would be the two that I would look at. And honestly, even a building phase you could potentially look at as well too. But for you, it'd probably be more of a body recomp or a health maintenance phase that I would look at if you're that person that hasn't lost 5 to 10% of your body weight, but you're seeing these things creep up. So that's it for this episode. A ton of information here. So again, if you have any questions, please shoot me a message. If this is you and you fall into this and you have questions about how to manage it, which phase you need to go to, how to manage some of these things, then my free 30-minute strategy call is for you. We'll talk about your goals, where you want to go, and how we can get there. And again, the link to that is in the show notes. But that is it for this episode, and I will chat with you next time.